Our next guest played football at Purdue and Georgetown, then somehow he chose an even more painful profession. For decades, he's made us laugh at food, fatherhood, marriage, and diarrhea. He's got 5 kids, his own bourbon, and he's up near the top of the list with the most comedy specials of all time. Back on the road again with the Everything is Wonderful tour. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Jim Gaffigan. What is up, Jim?
Hello. Thank you so much. That was a lovely intro. I appreciate it.
Well, as a fellow Hoosier, it's lovely to have you on, man, and I found out so much about you. First off, I had no idea that you went to West Lafayette with all that blonde hair, and you were an offensive lineman for a couple of days. That's something out of left field.
It was at least a week. I walked on, and it's so funny how like the things you do, and like what sticks, and there's a photo of me floating around in that Purdue uniform, and there's just moments where people think that I was this Big Ten offensive lineman, not realizing that I was that for maybe a week, but I made it through the early practices. I made it to the photo part. Had no idea that the photo would be around 30 years later, but what are you going to do? And
also Georgetown, right? You were a center at Georgetown?
That's right. You've done your research, Well,
the only thing I thought you did was drink gravy and drink bourbon. Here I had no idea you were such an athlete.
Yeah. It's like there's so many different lives we've led, right? This is kind of like, this is your life. But, the thing is like, I would also say, like those college years, I never drank bourbon. I was much more of a beer guy because I just, sheer volume. But now that I'm an old man, I love a high quality bourbon. And so that's what got me into Fathertime. And it is the perfect Father's Day gift. Fathertime.
Father's Day, I saw on your website, you got only 5 days to order if you want to make sure that this Fathertime bourbon shows up at your old man's mailbox. Get your dad a bottle of the Caboose.
That's right.
What is this cask strength?
That's right.
I'm not that familiar with bourbon, but when they say that this stuff has cask strength, what does that mean?
Well, that means, like all bourbon is aged in barrels or these casks, right? And so when it comes out of the barrel or the cask, it's at a certain strength, which means it's stronger. So like if you consider like beer is like at a low percentage, like maybe 2 point or 4 point or 5 point ABV, like a cask strength is, or a wine might be at 6% and say, Fireball's at 60% alcohol, a cask strength might be 122 proof.
This stuff is like drinking moonshine.
It's a very
seems like.
high proof. Yeah, it's kind of, but moonshine's younger, right? Whereas like the reason bourbon has that dark color is because of the barrel. It gets and that's why bourbon tastes so sweet is because, some of it's made with corn, but it is the barrel that finishing that makes it taste so delightful.
I was surprised to find out also that you were up near the leaderboard with the most comedy specials of all time. Do you know how many? Because there are conflicting reports on the internet. How many on a major network or big streaming service? How many comedy specials do you have?
I think it's 11. I think it's 11 or 12. I mean, it's also like, do you count the Comedy Central half-hour special? But yeah, no, by the way, speaking of bourbon, I have a whole special just on bourbon on YouTube. But, stand-up is very much self-assignment, and that's why I love it. You can there's always this creative outlet. I'm on tour right now, and some of it is if a creative idea comes up, I can try it out that night. Obviously people come to a show, I'm doing all A material and want them to leave, saying to themselves, when Jim comes back, I'm coming to a show. but you can try out ideas every night. Whereas, like, I love acting, but you have to be respectful to the script and obviously the story that's trying to be told. Whereas stand-up, you can be a little bit all over the place.
The Everything is Wonderful tour. Jim will be all over the country. You can find the dates and the tickets by going to jimgaffigan.com. I actually did the research for you, Jim. You are near the leaderboard. Do you realize you're only 3 shy of George Carlin? He has 14 specials. Do you know who the number one is? Do you know who number one is with the most, at least according to the internet?
I think, isn't Kathy Griffin, doesn't she have some insane amount?
She does. She's at 20, but they're on Bravo Network. Does that really count, Jim? I'm not sure. You're right up there at the top.
Yeah, I think they do count, but like some of it is, she's very talented, but like that's kind of topical kind of stand-up, kind of like, whatever's in the tabloids. She's kind of commenting on that. Whereas, like, I'm dealing with, hard-hitting things like donuts. I'm trying to make donuts and kind of a teenager's driver's lesson funny. But no, I mean, it's all silly.
Well, as a fellow Hoosier, I'm rooting for you, Jim, to take over Kathy's record in the Guinness Book of World Records. You're more than halfway there. Also, being an Indiana guy, I know Letterman had to mean a lot to you. How did you finally get that big break and get your chance to walk out on that stage on The Late Show?
Gosh, I feel like everyone can identify with this. There were plenty of moments where, I was one of the last of my peer groups to get Letterman or a late night show. And so in some ways, I was kind of just relieved to finally do it. It was a pretty significant goal of mine. And so I was definitely very focused on doing it. But it was pretty surreal, particularly being from Indiana and growing up in Indiana. It was very much Letterman and Mellencamp were like these Hoosier icons of like, or examples of like, oh, maybe we can do something. So it was great, and I remember I can still hear his laugh. When you're doing your set, you can hear the host whether they're laughing or not. So it was pretty exciting.
Afterwards, what do you think you learned from that experience? It sharpened your blade, made you better? Were you scared shitless?
I think that for me, performing on Letterman was such a goal that it made me kind of calibrate my priorities, because I was so single focused on doing that. And this is when late night shows were so important to stand up. I mean, obviously now social media has such a huge impact that I kind of was like, all right, I did that. I feel like I can die now. But like, it made me recalibrate some priorities, meaning having some balance in my life. I feel like so much of life is just, you're constantly reevaluating things. And that's, in some ways, I did, at that time, I didn't really drink, and even having my own bourbon, like there's times where I'm like, you have to sit there and recalibrate if you're touring too much or you're focusing on this too much. It's like, but everyone deals with this, the work-life balance. It's always a struggle.
We're talking with Jim Gaffigan, one of the best in the business. He's back out on the road with his Everything is Wonderful tour. Get your dates and tickets at jimgaffigan.com. And if you want to get that bourbon before Father's Day, go to fathertime-bourbon.com and get you on that caboose. You've got these Indiana roots we talked about. You love Letterman. You love drinking, which I know is another thing Indiana people love to do because there's not much else going on. And you love farming and gardening. What makes your garden grow, Jim?
I mean, that's, it is interesting. That's where I'm just so Midwestern. I really do love gardening. And there is, it's kind of a joke among my kids because every day during the summer I'm bringing something in and I'm trying to get people to, trying to get my family to eat these radishes I grew. I don't know. There's something about playing in the mud that it's really, it's similar to stand-up. Like there's, there's an enjoyment in the process. It doesn't make sense because anyone who gardens, it doesn't, it's not like, oh, I've saved all this money. And you usually lose money. It's easier to go to the grocery store and buy a tomato than grow one. That's not to say that there aren't some people that are very good at it, but I'm not one of them. But it is just rewarding, and it's fun. It's similar to stand-up. You work really hard, and sometimes you end up with some great material, and sometimes you work really hard and you come up with nothing. So it's, like gardening, sometimes you plant some seeds and you get a bounty, and sometimes nothing comes up. But it's kind of fun trying to figure out the science and Mother Nature on your side here and there, and it's pretty amazing. A
lot of it, I think, comes down to the dirt. You got to have that good Indiana black, good dirt. It's got some manure in it. If you missed his latest comedy special, The Skinny, I thought it was hilarious, and it's kind of interesting to see you so skinny. And it's perfect timing, too, because we're living in this era where everybody's talking about their GLP-1s and 2s, and I think they're coming up with a 3. Are you on? You're on one of these, right? That's keeping you skinny.
Yeah. No, it is. For me, I always describe it. It made me human. Prior to being on Manjaro, now people are like, I don't want to give up. I love eating. I love food, but you still do. You just eat like a normal human. You know what I mean? So it's instead of, I have a dog, and the dog will just eat whatever is in front of them. And I remember thinking, that's how I am when I'm not on Manjaro. But it's definitely worth it, I think.
It's any side effects?
Besides the tail I grew, I don't think so.
He's the funny man. Make sure you go see him. His brand new tour. It's happening now. Everything is wonderful out there. The name of the tour, what's the name? It's everything is fantastic. Is that you're always saying
everything's wonderful because everything is wonderful, right?
I'm not sure if everybody sees it that way, but you're living that skinny life, so I can see how you would see that.
That's the sarcasm of it, is that it's not wonderful.
I'm wondering another thing about Hoosier life is family reunions. People love in Indiana to have a family reunion with your wife, the eldest of 9. You're the youngest of 6. You got 5 kids. If you get everybody together, this could be a disaster. Do you ever get everyone together? And how often are you in contact with your siblings?
Yes, we do that every summer. We have one weekend where we have my siblings and their family come. And then we have another weekend where my wife's family. And, it's there's a lot of moving parts, right? And people have, jobs. So sometimes not everyone can make it. But it is fun to get everyone together and just, kind of decipher some of that chaos that we all grew up in. But, yeah, I used to have a different viewpoint on family reunions. I guess as I get older, I think they're kind of fun, and particularly if it's just a weekend. It's it's a nice summer weekend. You get together and drink some bourbon, have some fun. It's a good time.
Well, hopefully you go see Jim Gaffigan live on the Everything is Wonderful tour. He's going to be all over the country, and you can get all the dates, the tickets at jimgaffigan.com. Happy Father's Day to you, too, by the way. What is the perfect Father's Day for Jim Gaffigan? A little bourbon? A little music? Like some Mellencamp? What is the perfect Father's Day?
I would say the perfect Father's Day is, I would say working in my garden, a nap, and then grilling and hanging out with my kids. That would be the perfect one for me.
Well, hopefully you get to celebrate.
And then, of course, having some good bourbon.
Of course. Yeah. Get that Fathertime bourbon for your daddy. Just go to fathertime-bourbon.com, also jimgaffigan.com. Safe travels, Jim. We appreciate you. Good luck with the tour, and thanks for all the laughs. Brother, big fan.
Thank you. Appreciate it.